So I was like, that's so crazy. And then I went 2 weeks and I was like, I think I've been happy for 2 weeks. Then it was 3 weeks. And then I realized that I wasn't sad anymore. Hello there. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lusanda, and today I'm going to be sharing the story of how my testimony of how Jesus healed me from depression. So I've got my South African rooibos tea with me, and you guys should just grab something, get comfortable, because we're going to get into it. So all of this took place between 2016 and 2017. I was a young girl in university, and just to give you a bit of background, I grew up kind of being the golden child. I always got good grades. At some point, I was promoted, so I was like a grade ahead of a lot of my peers. I was the youngest in the class, still doing well, getting good grades. And that came to be my identity, honestly. I just found a lot of worth and value in getting good grades. I felt like that's what I contribute in a space. That's what I bring to my family, which is so sad. And eventually it took a toll. So coming to 2016, it was supposed to be my final year of university. I was in school with some good friends who were some really serious girls who were part of the Golden Key Honor Society. People were really serious about school, super motivated. We're doing this, school's almost over. Right. So that's the background of everything that happens. And so what happened that year was that school was much tougher than I was prepared for. It was really tough. I wasn't managing, I wasn't handling everything perfectly. And so I was panicking, obviously super stressed out. And also there was actually a lot of political stuff that was happening in school at the time. There was like the fees must fall protests. So there was that in the environment. I had a bit of roommate drama, there was a lot of stuff going on. And I was struggling. But at that time, I didn't call it depression. I didn't know that I was starting to become depressed. I just thought I was stressed like everyone else. I remember trying to talk to some friends about it, but more and more feeling hopeless, because the thing is that it wasn't just school that was going wrong. To me, because school and grades were so linked with my identity, when that wasn't going well, I just felt like I wasn't doing well at all. So that's the context of what happens. And then next, school was about to end. So I went home for the holidays. I was really looking forward to that because I have a great home, I have a great family. So I just thought, look, I'm just going to have this semester break and I'm going to get refreshed. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to forget about all the stress that was in. And I had a good time. It was actually a good holiday. I went to Mozambique with my friends. Fantastic, And then I didn't see my results just during that entire period. I only saw them when I came back to school. So my wonderful parents dropped me off at the airport, and then I come back to school. And on that day, I think it was that day, I go to campus and I check my grades and I failed, I think, 2 modules, which meant that I wasn't going to be able to graduate that year. And it was the end of my world. That's what it felt like. I just felt like I didn't have a future, honestly. I was like, oh, you've ruined it, you've ruined everything. There's no hope for you. Those were the thoughts that were swirling around my head. And so I just thought, what am I gonna do? Like, I just, sometimes when you're depressed, when you're sad, you really can't see beyond that situation, beyond your feeling in that moment. A lot of things are exaggerated or more high stakes than they should be. In that moment something happens and you just feel like it's the end, when it actually isn't. So because it was the end, I thought, let's just make this the end for real. I'd been sick over the holidays. I've been flu-y, so I had a bunch of pills with me, and I thought that the best way to deal with this, instead of calling my parents asking for help, is just to take these pills and get out of here. Already I feel like I've lost my value. I feel like I've lost what I contribute. And so I wasn't really crying, I was just a little sad, but it felt like it should happen. I just felt like, man, I was already sad anyway in first semester. Let me just go ahead and do this. So I was on the phone with a friend. I took all the pills. It was really gross. It was so disgusting. I can remember the sensation. Just imagine gulping down that many pills. And then I wasn't sure how long it would take or how it was going to work, but I just thought, yeah, this is it. I'm finally going to go out. But I bought 40 pills. And then I called a friend who wasn't at school with me. She was in a different province. I thought it would be best to call her instead of friends who were close by in case they came to save me. Also, my housemate hadn't come back from the holidays yet. So I was all alone and I thought, you know what, I don't want her to find me here rotting. She doesn't deserve that. I'm going to tell one of my friends who's far away that I've done this so that she can tell someone else who can then come and find me. But I thought it would buy me time so that I would have enough time to die. I'm smiling now, but it's also because I just can't believe, the space I was in. I did that and I called the friend who was away, but she immediately called a friend that she knew who was in the same city as me. And shout out to my friend who saved my life that night. She showed up and I threatened her. I just told her, look, yes, I drank all the pills, but don't call an ambulance. Don't tell my parents. Don't do anything. I didn't ask you to come here. I was probably kind of mean, but I was also really tired. I really just wanted to go. And for a couple of hours, I wasn't feeling anything. And then, like, a few hours later, I started to feel a little sleepy, a little floaty, but not sick yet. And so my friend kept begging me, don't fall asleep, until she just finally called an ambulance. And so they came, they took me, I went to the hospital. And I remember when I got there, so part of the meds I'd taken were Panados, like paracetamol, quite a lot of it. And when the doctor saw me, he was like, they asked how many pills I'd taken. And my friend said 40. And the doctor was like, she's lying. She didn't take that many pills. She's supposed to be passed out by now. I was fully conscious. I wasn't feeling sick. Again, just that slight floaty feeling. And so that made me, I remember the feeling of being so, so sad when the doctor said, because I was like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm actually trying to die here and this is not working. And I really, again, now I see that was the hand of the Lord already working, because I have a friend who I'd asked early on. She'd had an episode where she'd been in hospital just probably a few weeks before me, and she'd had about 8 Panados. So I asked her, which was so insensitive of me, I just asked her how many pills she'd taken. And I just needed to know, how much it takes to get there. So she'd taken 8. I took maybe 12, 15, like a lot of pills, but it just didn't have an effect on my body. And so I just remember just having that really uncomfortable conversation with the doctor when I got to hospital, because he was just like, she's lying. Why is she even here? I was really unresponsive. I wasn't talking. I was just really upset and despondent. And so, yeah, I landed in hospital. I think I'm going to be able to insert just a couple of pictures of like when I was in hospital. And I only really got sick once I was in hospital. Then I started throwing up and I don't know, the pumping them out of me. It was a horrible experience. I was there for a couple of nights. It was the absolute worst. And I think part of why it was so sad was that the whole time I just felt like, why didn't I die? Why didn't it work? I didn't then immediately come to my senses. The whole time I wanted to die still. And then eventually I told my parents, because obviously now I'm in hospital, so there's going to be bills involved. There's a lot of things involved. I'm going to have to tell my parents what I've done. So I sent my mom a text. And I remember she responded pretty calmly. She's really good at that, my mom. She just responds very calmly in situations like that. But I had no idea the impact it had. I sent her a text. I told her, Mom, I did something stupid. I'm in hospital. I tried to kill myself. I drank a bunch of pills. She was like, yeah, that was not a smart thing to do. But she was very logical and calm. So I was like, it's not that big a deal. So I was in South Africa. My mom's in Swaziland, a different country. And so I'm texting her, and the next day she showed up. She literally came to where I was. And it was honestly so dramatic and so painful. She walked in, the doctors were there, my fantastic friends, shout out to all my friends who were there with me. They showed up, they were around. My mom walks in and she's sobbing, like she was crying, heartbroken, and everyone just immediately left the room. No one asked questions, everyone just left, doctor, my friends. And my mom just started crying, and that broke my heart completely, because until then I just didn't have perspective of like how much pain I was also putting the people around me through, So we both cried, she stayed with me, and then eventually I was discharged. And then I think that's when a lot of things actually unfolded, because until then it seems like such a short period, right, for depression. It's just like, wait, so you're sad about school, then you try to kill yourself. But honestly, I feel like my saddest moments came after that after I did that, because from then I still had that feeling of like my grades hadn't changed. The results were still the same. The school wasn't then going to promote me because then I reacted dramatically, you know? So again, I still had the belief in my mind that I'd ruined my life and I didn't deserve to be around anymore. I didn't want to be around anymore. I didn't have a future. All these lies, all these things that I was believing and thinking. And so I ended up staying with my mom and another friend of mine for the next week or so once I'd left hospital. And my mom was just talking to me. She shared about how she'd had a similar experience, but she was much older and just her circumstances were different. But she tried something like that. And I don't think I'd known that before then. And basically, she just spoke to me about, she didn't try to cure me, you know, she didn't try to heal me. The one thing she said that changed things for me was, please don't kill yourself. It's so selfish. You would have broken us completely. Just promise me that. Just promise you won't kill yourself no matter how bad it gets. So that's the one promise I made. And I still wanted to die. I was still so sad. But I knew that I wouldn't do that again, especially because it didn't work. So I didn't want the drama again, you know, but I put my loved ones through. And after that, things just unfolded. I was still in school, but I was so sad. I remember deregistering from a couple of modules, just really rearranging my life and then realizing, okay, I'm going to have to do an extra year and then trying to get through that. And then I saw a psychologist for a bit, but I wasn't invested. I didn't go to all my sessions. I was so sad. Then I also went on some meds to help me regulate my mood. So I'm just letting you know all the things that I started taking, trying to get help with this. And at the time, in terms of my relationship with God, I don't really remember how I was relating to God. I had come from a place for a long season where I wasn't really in the faith anymore. I was kind of atheist for a while. So in this space, I think I'd started believing again or trying, but God wasn't a big factor. I won't lie to you. Yeah. So when I tried to kill myself, I wasn't thinking of hell. I wasn't thinking of God and his love. He was so far from my reality at that time. And so I'm trying all these things, but to be honest, I don't think a lot of prayer was involved on my end. I know all the people around me were praying for me, but on my side, not so much. And then the school year ended. I survived. And I think at the end of the year, I cut all my hair off. I shaved my head bald and I was like, this is metaphoric. You know, it's a symbol of a new year that's coming in. I just felt like, okay, I'm gonna give myself another chance, you know. And so after I'd cut my hair and I'd done everything, I still had these wonderful friends supporting me. And I suppose I was just going through it, you know. Some days were better than others. I think that happens a lot when you're dealing with mental illness. Still taking the pills, still trying to get better, still just feeling like, okay, maybe, you know, but every once in a while, it never lasted long. I couldn't go 5 days. I couldn't go 5 days of just like normal happy days. After a couple of days, I just break down. I just cry. I couldn't explain it, you know. There wasn't a specific thing. After a while, it just felt like, I guess it's just that feeling of like, there's nothing much to live for. I don't have a future and whatever else happens in our minds, but that's what was happening. So I thought that by the time I come home at the end of the year, again, home had always been the place where I would find just relief and calm and joy. And all of that was there. My family was still there, but for some reason it couldn't get to me anymore. Like the joy it felt like it stopped right outside the door of my heart, you know? And I remember my friends came to visit from South Africa. We went on a trip. We had some really fun times. But I remember feeling that at any given point, even in the happiest moments of that trip, you know, I'm with my friends, I'm with my family, it's the holidays, it's summer. At any given point, if you'd asked me whether I'd rather be doing this really fun stuff, making memories, or die, I would have chosen death. I remember thinking that sometimes, like, this is great and all, but if someone would give me the option to die, if finally it wasn't so bad, you know, like if I had the room and I hadn't made that promise to my mom, I'd still rather be dead. That's just how depressed I was. I was so sad and I could not get out of it. And this continued into the year 2017, which was actually my final year of university. I went back to school, still sad, still just making it for like 5 days at a time. But beginning to be a little more hopeful. I think my relationship with God was starting to change a little more, just trying to have more conversations with Him. And so in 2017, around March is when it happened. I was having a conversation with a friend about purpose. It wasn't even related to this. And then I just felt like, oh yeah, I don't know much about like purpose stuff. And someone had given me a gift, a book to read about purpose. Shout out to my mom Kulu, my aunt. And she'd given me that book, and I'd forgotten where it was. So as we were talking about purpose, I think to myself, oh, I should read those books again. That's what's going to help me. This, I wasn't thinking this in relation to my depression. I was just thinking it in general. It was just a random conversation. And then I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, do you know what my books are about purpose and whatever? And my dad was like, it was so random. My dad's hilarious, you guys. He's so wise, but he sometimes he doesn't say things that you expect him to say and when you expect him to say them. Because at that time, I really thought he'd tell me where my books were, but he didn't. He said, do you know what? The real key to finding out your purpose is to ask your maker. That's how you're going to know the purpose of a thing. Ask the guy who made the thing. And he was like, you need to just pray. You need to just pray in the spirit. You need to just speak in tongues and just spend time with Jesus for at least an hour a day. It was such a specific instruction. Also, just kind of random, but I was like, okay, Dad, I mean, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. So I forgot about my books, and I decided to invest in this. And so I just started praying. And it wasn't easy. Like, it wasn't easy. There was a bit of resistance there because it's not something I was in the practice of doing at the time. So, but I just pushed through and I just started praying, speaking in tongues. I don't think the first day was an hour, but I kept building up, like just trying to be consistent, praying, praying, praying. I promise you, it wasn't long. It was probably just a week. And after the week, I realized, hey, I've been happy, for a couple of days. And then it turned into like 2 weeks of joy. And to be honest, I don't think I was even consistent the whole time. I just remember after like a week of consistent prayer that I realized that I haven't had a sad day, which was completely rare for me. Like yeah, I told you I couldn't go 5 days, So I was like, that's so crazy. And then I went 2 weeks and I was like, I think I've been happy for 2 weeks. Then it was 3 weeks. And then I realized that I wasn't sad anymore. And it's crazy because you want to share a testimony where you say, oh, I saw 3 psychologists and this is exactly the prayer that I prayed and these are the steps that I took. But I really believe that it was a miraculous healing. I really believe that's what Jesus did for me. And I know that he doesn't move the same way for everyone all the time, but that's what happened for me. I was literally just yanked out, delivered. And I'm so, so grateful. Yeah, I stopped taking the pills. I was still seeing a psychologist. I was still talking, but I think being yanked out of that, the things started to take effect. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're taking pills, but they're not doing much for you. They're just barely keeping you alive. But when I was talking to the psychologist, it was actually, having an effect. I was able to make changes. I was able to hear truth and start to change my perspective. But after that, miraculous healing from Jesus. And so that's how it happened. I was just healed, and I just started having good days, like just good day after good day after good day. And so by the time bad days came, it was not the same. The first time I faced a bad day after that, I was like, this is not the same at all. I'm disappointed about this. I'm a little sad about this, but it's not speaking to my life, my identity. It's not such a big deal as it was before. And that's when I really realized that, wow, God has totally healed me. And I was so, so grateful. And from then, just my relationship with God as well took off because I really clung on to him for the rest of the year just to survive. School was still a lot of pressure, but just shifting my focus and just realizing that my identity, this is a journey though, right? So it didn't happen overnight, but realizing that my identity is not the grades that I bring, it's not, and finding my identity more and more in him. So yeah, that's how Jesus healed me of depression. And since then, I have not gone back to that space, which is also really crazy for me that it's been so sustained. A lot of stuff has happened since then, ups and downs, lots of challenges and really great times. But each time I've been like in a pit where I've just felt like, oh, I'm so disappointed, or this is such a tough spot in my life. Every single time I've been there, I've compared it to the other dark times in my life where I was in a pit. And I can't even compare it. Now I'm so much more aware of God's presence when I'm in those things. And there's hope. Even in my sadness, there's like so much hope. And I think that's just the big difference than how I was before. So I'm super, super grateful. And I just want to encourage anyone who's going through it. I know people have had even way tougher journeys with depression, like bigger battles. And some people have been going through this for years, on medication, really, really struggling with this. I just want to tell you guys that there's hope, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And even if it doesn't work out the same way, God's going to show up, that He cares, that He's involved, that He hears your stories, and He's not just looking at you suffer, but He's with you, He's holding your hand the whole time. And there's really, really hope. So I'd want to just maybe give you the advice that my mom gave me. Just please hold on, yeah, hold on, don't let go. The hope's gonna come, the change is gonna come eventually. And also, if you haven't been able to, reach out, find some help, find the people around you. A lot of us are blessed with really good friends and family. Find those people, reach out to those people, reach out to God. Just talk to Him, even if you don't know how, really you're not able to pray for in tongues for an hour. Just being able to reach out and invite Him into those spaces is going to make all the difference. So I hope you've been blessed and encouraged by my testimony. If you have, can you just comment down below, share your story a bit if you're comfortable doing it. Let's engage, let's talk about this some more, and make sure that you like and subscribe. God bless.